I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. For those of you who are new, welcome into the program. For those of you who are returning, what's up, Locker Room faithful? Before we get started, it's super simple. Make sure you're following The Locker Room on our social media. Why, you might ask? Super simple. We have a ton of exclusive content that is only on our Instagram, our Twitter, our YouTube, you name it. We have special stuff going on all of our social media. So to be up to date, to stay up to date, to enjoy all things Locker Room, hit us up at TLR Podcast 615. This episode is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym needs. From clothing to supplements to recoveries to vitamins to pre-workout, post-workout, everything you need to have a happier, healthier, better experience in the gym. FNX Fitness has you covered, and it is made here in the beautiful USA. So go to fnxfit.com, use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST, all capitals, and I'll give you 15% off your first purchase. This is it, people. We have come to the end. Scarefest episode 4. The final episode of Scarefest is here. I know it's sad, but don't worry. Christmas is right around the corner, and we have a bunch of fun stuff planned for that. But here we go. The last subject I'm going to talk about when it comes to Halloween. Just good old-fashioned trick-or-treating. The do's and don'ts, okay? There's a lot of do's and don'ts here that we need. Listen, there's some of you out there that have got some real issues when it comes to trick-or-treating, and we need to handle this today. So here, I got you covered. Here's the do's and don'ts of trick-or-treating. The first do of trick-or-treating is do participate. Listen, if you have a place that you call a home, right? If you have a welcome mat that says welcome and or home, and it is in front of a structure that you therefore sleep in and use the restroom in and cook dinner in, and you call that a home, right? If you live in one of those things, then participate. I mean, like, I forever, as a kid, at 8 years old, to this day, I can remember the Johnsons' house. You want to know why? Because the Johnsons hated children and never participated in Halloween. Okay? They never passed out candy. And we lived in, as a kid, we lived in a very big neighborhood. So all the houses were lit up. Everybody had their front porch lights on. You know, they were dressed up, sitting on their front porch, greeting the kids as we walked up and said trick or treat. And it was amazing. Great memories, except for the Johnsons, right? The Johnsons are forever burned into my brain. And I know what you're saying. Jacob, if you're still upset about a house from when you were 8 years old that didn't participate in Halloween, you probably need therapy. And the answer is probably yes, right? But also the answer is probably don't be the Johnsons, right? Probably participate in trick-or-treating, okay? I don't care. First off, and when I say participate, I mean pass out candy. By that, I mean candy, right? I don't know if you're hearing me correctly, because some of you psychopaths are passing out apples because kids, for some reason, want apples. I can't even make this up. I was taking my niece's trick-or-treating 2 years ago. This was pre-COVID when, you know, life was normal. And a lady was passing out toothbrushes and toothpaste. Like, don't be that person either. At that point, be the Johnsons and don't participate, right? But, I mean, like, just go to Walmart, spend $15, buy a bunch of candy, buy a bunch of Hershey bars. It comes in giant bags for $15, and pass it out to children and make their night. Don't be a Johnson, and don't be somebody that passes out toothbrushes or toothpaste, okay? That's the first do and do nots of trick-or-treating. Here's one of the biggest do nots of trick-or-treating. Do not be the person that leaves an entire bowl of candy out on your front porch and says, please take one on the front of it, right? Don't be that person. Do you want to know why? Because every little boy that is above the age of 7, I would say, is going to steal that entire bowl of candy when they approach your house. And I'm not saying I'm speaking from experience, but I'm speaking from experience. What I would do is when it said take one, we would take the entire bowl, we would empty that entire bowl into our bag, and then we would chuck the bowl into somebody else's yard. Just so somebody else had to get up and clean up their yard. I took all of your candy, and I'm a bad person for doing that. I get that. Okay, there's a reason I need Jesus in my life. That's a pretty big reason. I robbed people of candy every Halloween, but also it's kind of a little bit sort of kind of your fault, right? You can't put an entire bowl of candy out there to a bunch of unsupervised children at the age of 13 and 14 years old and say, oh, but please take one. There was a house in my neighborhood growing up that literally had king-size candy bars in a bowl that said, please take one. Are you out of your mind? Like, first off, you're going to get the cream of the crop. King-size candy bars. They were Reese's. They were Babe Ruth's. I mean, like, this was the house to go to. And this guy put out 2 bowls, and it said, just please take one. So, of course, that's the first house I would always hit. That's the first house we would always rob of all of its candy, and I feel bad about it, okay? But at the end of the day, it's sort of kind of, I'm blaming you, right? Don't do that. That's just dumb, because no kid, especially in today's, first off, if you thought I was bad then, you should see children now, okay? I've seen children talk to their parents worse than, let's put it this way, if I talk to my parents the way kids talk to their parents now, I would not be talking into a microphone right now, right? I would be breathing through a tube because I was raised properly, right? Respect adults. That's all I'm trying to say out there, kids. Just respect adults. But anyways, like, you expect that these kids, especially the kids of today, are going to honor the please take one? Yeah, never going to happen. So that's a big don't of trick-or-treating. Don't do that because it's all going to be gone by the first jerk kid that comes up to your house. Finally, the last do's and do nots of trick-or-treating. And parents, this one's for you because these kids can't control this. Do everything in your ability. I was going to say doo-doo, but then I didn't want to laugh like a 7-year-old. Do everything in your ability to make sure your kid has a kick-ass costume. I'm not saying go to Party City. I'm not saying go to Walmart and spend hundreds of dollars. Trust me, I understand costumes can be very expensive. Growing up with 5 siblings, it wasn't easy to try and find a Halloween costume. There was a lot of hand-me-down costumes that got turned into new costumes, right? But do everything in your ability to make sure that you put in some work to help your kid transform for that night. Because it really does. And I'm speaking 100% honest here. I know I'm usually joking and sarcastic, but I have very good memories of my mom making my costumes. I have very good memories of my mom and dad. Like I said, I came from a big family, so sometimes we had hand-me-down costumes. But I have very good memories of my mom going out of her way, to make my costume or to give me everything that I wanted, And so, parents, it's not about buying your kid the most expensive costume. It's about putting some heart and soul into that costume because I promise you, some kids, like myself, not only appreciate it looking back at it, but I still can remember some great memories of some of my most favorite costumes. I remember a costume where I wanted to be a zombie chef, and my mom bought a black wig so that I could wear a black wig. We cut part of the black wig, glued on a fake mustache because for some reason I was obsessed with having a mustache as this zombie chef. And to this day, I can remember that costume. And I was probably 10 years old when I had that costume. Probably 10 years old. But I can remember my mom working at it and making me the best zombie chef that there was out there. So, Mom, I just wanted to say I love you and I thank you for that. And parents, it's not about buying your kid, the best of everything. It's about putting some heart and soul into those costumes because they will look back at it. And I know a lot of you are even thinking about it right now. You will look back at it and appreciate not only the costumes that your parents put in the work for, but appreciate the memories of what they sacrificed to give you that costume. So do everything in your ability to make Halloween fun for everyone.
Yeah, say that all the time.
So I think we all can agree that the NFL season has already been a little wild. And I've got a new segment that I'd like to call Jaw Droppers. These are some things that have dropped my jaw already in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs are dropping jaws left and right, and this time, not for a good reason. Usually, Patrick Mahomes is dropping no-look dimes. They're dominating the NFL. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce look absolutely unstoppable. Andy Reid looks like a genius. Their defense is playing just good enough to not be really noticed. And that's honestly what you want in the NFL, right? You either want a defense that literally is one of the top 5 in the NFL, or you want a defense that is not so bad that they're being recognized, So they're usually middle of the road defense. And what we have gotten so far is jaw-dropping in the negative sense. We've got Patrick Mahomes turning the ball over. We've got a defense that is one of the worst in the entire NFL. We've got an offensive line that can't protect Patrick Mahomes. We've got wide receivers dropping footballs. We've got Tyreek Hill going for, 6 catches and 20-something yards in a game? We were not expecting any of this from these Kansas City Chiefs, especially being led by Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, Patrick Mahomes has played pretty pedestrian. He's played, and I'll get to why that is here in a second, but 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, which is very uncharacteristic of Patrick Mahomes. Now, Mahomes is not the most, safe player with the football. He definitely tries a lot of things, but 9 interceptions already, only through, 6 games? A QBR rating of 63.9, that's pretty bad, especially for Patrick Mahomes' standards. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes being the best quarterback in the NFL in one breath, and then we look at his stats and we're like, well, there's absolutely no way he could be the best quarterback in the NFL, right? He's in that upper echelon of the Tom Bradys, the Aaron Rodgers, the Russell Wilsons, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jacksons. He is one of those top 5 guys, if not the number 1 guy when it comes to best quarterback in the NFL. And this year, he is just not having that kind of a year. And here's a big reason why. The defense for Kansas City is so atrocious. And the coaching, honestly, Andy Reid, I like Andy Reid a lot. He seems like a pretty good coach and a pretty good guy. But Andy Reid's not having his best year either. Right? He's making no adjustments. The defense doesn't look any better from week to week. The offense doesn't look any better from week to week. There's no good play schemes on the offensive side of the football. I know just because we have a Ferrari in the backfield and Patrick Mahomes doesn't mean that we have to drive the Ferrari at 1,000 miles an hour, because guess what? Sometimes it's okay to cruise. Sometimes it's okay to hop in the G-Wagon or the minivan and just go for a nice stroll, right? They're trying to make Patrick Mahomes be Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, which is just chuck the ball up 1,000 times a game, pass the ball honestly for 40, 47 times a game, and let's not involve the running game whatsoever. They need to start establishing something more than just having Patrick Mahomes throw his arm off of his shoulder. So I think that offensively, a lot of struggles have been coming from the coaching side of the football. But when you have a horrible defense, when you have a bad defense, right? What good players do is they try to make up for that. So Patrick Mahomes is trying so much the opposite way that it's negative. Patrick Mahomes is trying to extend plays. There was a play in the Tennessee game where he had a nice, easy first down. Just slide for the first down. Boom, you pick it up, not a problem. What does he do? Scrambles for another 6 yards, fumbles the football. Patrick Mahomes is trying to not only be hero ball, he's trying to be, it's hard to, he's trying to literally just take over the franchise. He's trying to coach, he's trying to play not only the best football, but he's trying to move everybody around. You can see how frustrated he is on offense, trying to talk to guys, trying to coach to them. It's like, Patrick, here's what you need to do. You need to calm down. You can't get it all back in one play. Stop trying to scramble for 47 yards. You're not Lamar Jackson. You're not Russell Wilson. Stop. Patrick Mahomes is an incredible arm talent with great football IQ, and he can move a little bit. But he is not Superman, so stop trying to be Superman. You can't be Superman. You see, this is how injuries start to occur as well. We saw him take a pretty nasty fall, fell right into Jeffrey Simmons' leg. The problem is Patrick Mahomes isn't thinking about making the easiest play. He isn't thinking about taking what's there. He's thinking about trying to win the entire game on one drive, which is a very dangerous mindset, especially at the quarterback position. That's how injuries occur. This is how you shorten the length of a long career. A concussion here, a twisted ankle there, a torn ACL here. All of that can all be, and we saw the exact same thing with Joe Burrow. I mean, look at last year for a perfect example. Joe Burrow was trying to play hero ball all the time. Yes, was he playing great? Absolutely. Was he tossing the rock all over? Absolutely. The problem is Joe Burrow was trying to extend plays. Joe Burrow was trying to be Superman, and it got him a torn ACL. So Patrick Mahomes, this Chiefs offense, this Chiefs defense needs to take one giant deep breath. The defense needs to go find good players, and their offense just needs to settle in. Because the only way the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be making the playoffs this year, the only way the Kansas City Chiefs are going to make any noise is on the offensive side of the football. And how do you take care of a bad defense? You keep your offense on the field. Long, lengthy drives. Tom Brady's so good at that. Tom Brady is so good at is if his defense is struggling, he's always been so cerebral when it comes to this stuff. He's like, hey, we're going to go on an 11-minute drive, an 18-play drive, whatever it is, and they're going to burn up half of the clock and spend half of the entire third quarter just driving the ball all the way down to the red zone to finally punch it in after, a 2-yard run from some running back. That's what Patrick Mahomes needs to do. Settle down. Stop trying to throw these no-looks. Stop trying to throw these left-handed passes. Stop trying to scramble for 40 yards. Just be normal Patrick Mahomes that we all know and love. And this Kansas City Chiefs offense will start clicking, and you'll see some more wins into the column. But for right now, you are a jaw dropper. Honestly, one of the biggest jaw droppers for me thus far this year has got to be the Arizona Cardinals. I did not expect Kyler Murray to run his little stubby short legs into not only first place, but into an undefeated record thus far. But, little man's done it, right? Kudos to you, Kyler Murray. And I say, I'm just poking fun, guys. I'm not calling him a little person or anything like that. I'm being very politically correct. He's just a little man. That's what he is, right? Very good commercial, by the way. He has a commercial that debuted on Sunday where he's practicing in the VR, right? Practicing in the virtual reality, and he's throwing the football all over the locker room, smashing the trophy cases and hitting his teammates and hitting the showers and stuff like that. Great commercial. So I do want to, not only are you dominating in the NFL right now, but you put out a really good commercial. So congratulations. You're doing what Baker would like to do, which is play great football and have great commercials. Baker Mayfield only has one of those right now. Oh, and also a dislocated shoulder. But anyways, the Arizona Cardinals are an interesting breed for me, an interesting animal, an interesting team. Now, I knew their offense was good. I knew the addition of A.J. Green was going to be a lot better than a lot of people thought. See, A.J. Green, when left one-on-one, can still win matchups. A.J. Green, when left one-on-one, can still do damage. And or now that they have A.J. Green and D-Hop, and they just added Zach Ertz, by the way, they now have a bunch of guys, even though they're all a little bit older. D-Hop is still a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. But they've got some guys that can start taking the pressure off of D-Hop, can start taking the pressure off of James Conner, who's been very great this year, and Chris Edmonds in the backfield. Once you can get an offense to where they have to pay attention everywhere, even if it's just a little bit, you have a great offense. What I loved about the Bucs last year in the Super Bowl, and even in the playoffs, is they established Leonard Fournette. They established a running game and a little bit of a threat, and you had Antonio Brown, and you had Chris Godwin, and you had Mike Evans. And a lot of teams honestly don't know how to utilize their weapons the right way. This is, I think, one of the biggest problems in Cleveland right now, is they're trying to overfeed Odell Beckham Jr. because it's OBJ. You've got to give Odell Beckham Jr. the ball. But then you have guys like Jarvis Landry, you have Nick Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt, you have, Hooper at the tight end. Like, you have all these different guys that if you stop worrying about how many touches one guy gets and you just start playing football, guess what? You'll have an offense like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You'll have an offense like the red-hot Cardinals. And, the dynamic of Kyler Murray as well as little dude can run. Like, man's got jets. I've never seen little legs kick so fast in my entire life when he gets into the open field. He's elusive. He's an explosive runner. And, he's just playing great football. Right now, he is right up there in the MVP conversation. And quite honestly, I think a lot of his success does come from the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is a very quarterback-friendly coach. He's a very offensive-friendly coach, and it seems like they have a very good repertoire, which is very hard to find, honestly, in the NFL. A head coach and a quarterback that can kind of sync together, and it seems like that's what this Cardinals offense is doing. But they just have so many weapons, and Kyler Murray's doing a beautiful job of not trying to overfeed it to D-Hop, not trying to overfeed it to AJ, not trying to overfeed it to Zach Ertz, or not trying to hand the ball off 28 times to James Conner, even though he's been very successful thus far this year. He's just doing a great job of taking what's there, making the plays when it's necessary, and also he has his own legs to where he can dart if he needs to. This Cardinals team is very, very dangerous. Oh, and not to mention, they've got a very good defense as well. J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, Buda Baker. They've got some guys that can play defense on the other side of the football. Hot take here. Hot take. Arizona Cardinals not only are going to win a couple playoff games, but they might be in that championship game. I'm not saying the Super Bowl, but I am saying you might see an NFC championship game on the horizon. You might see them in that spot. The Arizona Cardinals are a dangerous, dangerous team. Love the defense, love the coaching, but I'm shocked. Usually when players when players hit their sophomore season, they kind of take a step back. And while Kyler Murray was good last year, I thought he had to make such a ginormous leap coming into this year that they would still be 2 years away from playoffs. And I'm not saying 2 years away from making the playoffs. I'm saying 2 years away from being dangerous in the playoffs. But they're dangerous now. Kyler Murray has made the right steps forward. It really has been mind-blowing because we saw Baker, incredible first year, terrible sophomore year. We see guys like this all the time have sophomore slumps. Right now, honestly, Justin Herbert is surprising a lot of people because he's not had his sophomore slump. Kyler Murray has made a massive jump, though. He really has. He went from being, honestly, a guy that I did not know was going to have a long NFL career or was going to have a lot of NFL success to a guy that I can see having not only a lot of success, but being very much in the same shoes as a Russell Wilson. So, jaw dropper, the Arizona Cardinals being this good. Another jaw dropper, and I don't know why this is dropping my jaw because there's been no evidence that proves it should be dropping my jaw, but Tom Brady taking on time. What the heck, man? First off, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. I've come to accept it. I've come to realize it. And I've come to grow into a massive Tom Brady fan. Listen, this is coming from somebody who hated Tom Brady with everything in him. But I've grown to like Tom Brady now. I respect him. He's the greatest of all time, without a question. There's a lot of similarities between that GOAT and the greatest of all time in the NBA, LeBron James. But we won't get into that today. That's actually a podcast coming up. But, like I said, why am I shocked? And honestly, why are we shocked that Tom Brady's still this good? Why are we shocked that Tom Brady's throwing his 600th touchdown? Why are we shocked that Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers look like Super Bowl contenders once again? Why? He just doesn't stop. He gets better and better. And you have a guy who's this dedicated to film, this dedicated to learning, this dedicated to trying out new things, this dedicated to be better and get better every single day. I don't even know what you do with somebody like this. There's no category. GOAT is not even enough respect. This guy is still grinding it out at 46 years old. This guy's still watching film. He's still talking. He went on the Manning podcast the other day, or the Manning cast, and literally was still talking about how he's still learning things. What else is there to learn, Tom? At some point, Tom Brady's going to have to teach everybody else coming up because he knows too much. He is the all-knowing. Well, that's the good Lord Jesus Christ. But he is right up in the upper echelons of people that know stuff when it comes to their craft. I just think it's remarkable that we were talking about 5-6 years ago, and I was one of these guys too. Tom Brady's going to have his drop-off. Tom Brady's going to hit a brick wall. Tom Brady's going to fall off. He's going to stop being good. He's going to stop being successful. We're going to see time take down Tom. We're going to see time take down LeBron. And I'm tired of saying this about LeBron James and about Tom Brady. These dudes are just a different animal. These dudes are just a different breed of GOAT, right? You've got your Billy Goat, and then you've got your mega GOAT, I guess is what we can call him. And Tom Brady's just a mega GOAT. I don't know why I'm still shocked. My jaw's dropping, not necessarily because Tom Brady's still being as effective and as good as he is, but that the fact that I guess my jaw's dropped because I'm questioning it. Because why would you even question it anymore, Jacob? Tom Brady is just that good. But anyways, let's move on to another jaw-dropping moment. Jon Gruden I don't even know how to really put this. Gets exposed, probably is the best way to put it. Here's the deal. We live in a time and in a day and age where you can't talk how you would talk with your buddies. You can't talk how you would talk with your buddies over text messaging. You can't talk how you would talk normally with your buddies over email. You can't talk how you would talk with your buddies via any kind of technology. Do you want to know why? Because it matters so much to some people out there. And I'm not saying that it should matter or shouldn't matter. I'm staying out of the fray, okay? Keep my opinions to myself when it comes to that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is that you've got to be careful for where you're talking, how you're talking, and who you're talking to. Because if it's on technology, you're going to get fired here in a couple of years. We saw it with John Gruden. The problem is you can't have locker room talk over any kind of professional email, text message thread, anything like that. You just can't. That's A, unprofessional and dumb, because at some point somebody's going to read it that is going to be offended by it. And B, there's a time and a place for locker room talk. Listen, you're not going to stop locker room talk. I'm sorry for those of you that are into cancel culture, that just want to cancel anybody who's ever said anything bad ever in the history of their lives. If that was the case, everybody would be canceled. Everybody's got their group of friends where they can talk and they can speak a certain type of way that they're accustomed to, the people in that group are accustomed to, and that's okay. Locker room talk is going to always happen. But you can't do it on professional threads. You can't do it on professional emails. You can't do it on professional text messages, faxes, whatever it is, and expect to still have a job when someone else reads it. Keep your locker room talk, keep your private talk with your private group. Don't ever, and I'm saying this to anybody that's out there right now, don't ever put it down on a piece of paper. Don't ever put it down on a text message. Don't ever put it on a phone call or an email or XYZ. Don't. Because it's always going to get exposed at some point. There's a couple things that we know that we can for sure never tolerate, racism being one of the absolute biggest one of those. We never want to push hatred. We never want to push discrepancies against someone's skin color, someone's religion, someone's, sexuality. We don't ever want to do that. We all know that. That's like the big ones, right? That's what you grow up getting taught by your parents, and as long as you're in a great household, but that's what you grow up learning. Like, of course we don't judge someone based on their skin or based on their religion or based on their sexuality. Of course we would never do that. But we've got to distinguish what was being said that's that in that vein, and then what's being said that's in locker room talk. Like I said, I know they haven't released all of the emails. A couple of the things that I read were absolutely unacceptable. And, he deserves what he got. And then there's some things where it's like, okay, this is just normal guy locker room talk that in the right setting around the right people, as long as it's accepted by that group of people you're around, mainly being, your best friends or whoever, I understand, because there's going to be people that talk that way. I can't deny that me and my friends say stuff that listen, if you've ever played Xbox before, there's some things that have been said on Xbox to where you're just like, half of the entire world would be shut down right now and canceled. Just remember, we would never tolerate racism, homophobia, whatever it is. We would never do any of the big ones, as long as you're a good person. There's people out there that will. There's some bad people out there. But when it comes to locker room talk, I think we need to distinguish. We all know that this one's bad, right? We all know that absolutely evil, wicked racism, all that over here, that's disgusting, never tolerable. But when it comes to a professional setting, this locker room talk, we need to start deciphering a little bit better on what we're going to cancel somebody for and what we're not, because people are dumb. When they get around people that are their friends or that they're comfortable with, they say dumb stuff. And as long as they're repenting of that, I think we should be a little bit more forgiving. That's just my 2 cents. Now back to fun. We'll get away from the serious stuff. But yeah, jaw-dropping that John Gruden no longer the head coach of the Raiders with a 10-year, $100 million contract. Also jaw-dropping some of the horrible things that he said. And also jaw-dropping that we're canceling people even for the little stuff that he said, right? So I just think it's such a blurry line, and I don't want to get into the politics side of it or condone something or praise something because I'm not into that. I just think it's just a wild subject to try and tackle, and thank the Lord I'm not somebody that's going to try and tackle it any more than I just did. And moving on, the last jaw dropper of this week's episode, the Cincinnati Bengals in first place. I know some of you are trying to adjust your radios. You're trying to figure out what I just said. Did I really say that? Yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals are in first place. The Cincinnati Bengals can ball. Burrow, Bengals, ballers. All right? The 3 Bs. You've heard of Big Baller Brand, but ever heard of Bengals, Burrow, Baller? It's so hard to say. But Bengals, Burrow, Baller. I mean, there's a new BBB. Okay, yeah, there's a new BBB in town. Listen, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm keeping this age appropriate here. But, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals can ball. Jamari Chase is looking like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL right now. Their offensive firepower is pretty ridiculous. Mixon, Burrow, Jamari Chase. You got Tyler Boyd in there as well. Like, they've got some players that can play. And I think all that this has really proven me this year is that Burrow really is the real deal. Coming out of LSU, I didn't know if it was just he had so much talent around him that made it easier. And then his rookie year, I mean, we've seen players have amazing rookie years. Like I said, Baker Mayfield came in and lit it up, and now look what he's become. We have seen guys like that come in. They have spectacular rookie years. They're saying that they're some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and then they fall off instantly. But Burrow, even after his injury, he's just a great football player. He's a very, very smart quarterback. He's got a big arm. And with the addition of Jamari Chase, they just instantly started clicking. Like, this Cincinnati Bengals team can do some real damage. And another sleeper pick here, the Cincinnati Bengals are a sleeper wild card team for me. Now, they're not going to do much damage past that, but just even getting into the playoffs or even into the wild card, the Cincinnati Bengals have a very strong shot. So big jaw dropper that the Cincinnati Bengals are just literally took down the Ravens this week. They've taken down Pittsburgh already. The Cincinnati Bengals are dropping jaws and sitting in first place. Well, there are my jaw droppers of the week. I kind of like this segment. I'm going to start doing it for the NBA and for college football and some other ones coming up here. So I think jaw droppers here to stay. Let's talk a little Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Listen, why the hell was this match even made? I couldn't tell you. Why? Okay. At what point does this just get ridiculous? Also, this isn't Jake Paul versus Tyson. This is Logan Paul versus Mike Tyson. That's right. Logan Paul versus Logan doesn't bring in eyeballs. If this was Logan KSI, yes, you're going to bring in eyeballs because the YouTube world would eat it up. And guess what? The second fight was incredible. I mean, KSI beat the crap out of Logan Paul. It was a lot of fun. But you're telling me that you're giving me Logan Paul, YouTuber podcaster, versus 80-year-old Mike Tyson. And I'm supposed to pay $60 to watch this. At what point do we all find this to be absolutely ridiculous? At what point do people stop paying for a $60 pay-per-view for Logan Paul? I get it. If this was Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley or Tommy Fury or whoever Jake Paul decides, Jake Paul is a great fight promoter, and I can't stand Jake Paul, but he does a great job of promoting fights. His last fight with Tyron Woodley was entertaining. Jake is just a character. He says crazy stuff. He's a crazy person. He's a raging douchebag, but at least he's entertaining. Never once has Logan Paul ever been a big name draw unless it was for the KSI fight. So I don't understand why all of a sudden we're branching off and doing Logan Paul versus Mike Tyson. Yeah, Mike Tyson's a big name, but we just watched him fight Roy Jones Jr., whatever it was, 8 months ago, and I fell asleep halfway through the fight. And for those of you who know me, I've stayed up and watched some of the worst UFC fight cards in the history of the UFC. I've stayed up and watched some of the worst boxing in the history of boxing, and I fell asleep during that fight. No one cares. At what point do people just stop caring about dumb crap like this? At what point do we stop paying $65 to watch Logan Paul, not Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, or Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley, the rematch? Why are we paying to see Logan Paul fight some other old-ass boxer? We just saw him fight Floyd Mayweather all, 7 inches shorter and 100-something pounds heavier, Logan Paul, just fought a, 5'4" Floyd Mayweather, and everybody was just blown away. Oh, we paid all this money to watch that. Why? It was boring. No one cared. But the problem is there's some people out there that are going to pay for this because there's going to be music with it. It's going to be this big Listen, as a fight fan, I just can't stand watching a 45-minute concert to then watch old-ass Mike Tyson, who you can't understand a word he's saying into the microphone, fight Logan Paul. At what point does this stuff get ridiculous? At what point do we stop buying these celebrity boxing matches? At what point does this stop becoming entertainment and start becoming pathetic? Because I think it's at the pathetic point right now. I don't know if some of these older fighters need money or if Logan Paul is just doing it just to kind of get his name out there because Jake's so much more popular than he is. I mean, he's got a very successful podcast. He doesn't need to fight Mike Tyson. He doesn't need to, drag out an entire show over it. It's not going to get the numbers or the hype that a lot of people expect it to get, or they'll lie about the numbers because we've seen that even in Jake Paul's last couple of fights. We see the numbers literally be lied about all the time. They're not doing crazy 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. You want to know why? Because some of the biggest fights in the entire world, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, or any giant UFC event, is not getting 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, and I'm supposed to believe that Logan Paul is? This is done being entertainment, and it has become just foolish children playing around. Please, just do me a favor. Just do me a favor, and then I'll get off this subject. I'm sure we'll talk about this fight the closer it comes, even though no one's looking forward to it except for Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather, or Mike Tyson. See, I can't even remember what old-ass boxer he's trying to drudge up to get a paycheck from. But can we all agree? Let's just not buy this one, right? This one just feels pathetic. It feels too much of a reach. It feels like they're just trying to shove something down our throat like celebrity boxing. And it's not Jake Paul. And this is coming from someone who hates Jake Paul. I'm going to fight Jake Paul. He doesn't know it yet, but I've been training. This is coming from someone who can't stand Jake Paul. Logan, you're not Jake. When it comes to boxing, leave the boxing to Jake. And when it comes to podcasting, leave the podcasting to Logan, Jake. Okay? Plain and simple. You're both brothers. I get it. You both are famous. You both are crazy rich, blah, 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 blah. But both of you do things great. That's opposite of the other one. One's a good boxer. I'm not saying he's a great boxer. One's a good promoter and a decent boxer, and the other one's a very good podcaster and an entertaining human when it comes to making internet content. So let's keep it that way. Let's stop boxing these old-ass boxers because I'm tired of it. So let's shut it down, people. Please do not buy this fight. Please, please, please. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to get out of here. I do want to say a couple things. Listen, we're adding someone to the staff very shortly. The show is going to get more dynamic. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited for it. I've been working tirelessly, and I sincerely do mean that, on trying to get this show better and better and grow it and grow it. So I want to thank you for everybody who stuck around and listened from the beginning, because there's a lot of work that goes into this behind the scenes that you don't know about. It is just me doing everything, but hopefully all of that is changing very soon. We got some very exciting things coming to the Locker Room Podcast. Make sure you're following us on our social media, TLR Podcast 615. Other than that, guys and gals, I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.